What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie298 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And it's that time of year again when we go ahead and start posting these best and worst video games of the year lists. I got a lot of lists I want to do this year. Starting with this one, this is the best 10 games that I personally played, that I personally enjoyed, and that I can personally recommend if you like the same kind of games as me. There's going to be plenty more lists like that coming on the channel coming up, so if you like that kind of thing, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Starting off the list at number 10 is Tetris 99, and I really did not expect to like this game because I do enjoy puzzle games to some extent, but it always kind of feels like I'm just wasting my time solving puzzles unless there's some sort of progression chart, and it turns out fighting against other people is a great way to get me interested in these types of games. Now, I'm still not very good at it, and I think the highest I've ever ended up was around 30th place, but the fact that this game was pretty much for free with the Nintendo Switch if you paid for the monthly service, and it was a fairly innovative take on the whole battle royale thing and actually did something new and kind of unique, actually made me really happy. I liked that they mixed the battle royale genre with the puzzle genre and just came up with something brand new, even if I do suck at it. At number 9, I have listed Yoshi's Crafted World, and I get that a lot of people are not going to like this game because it is very family friendly and it's a very easy game, but I think that's okay when it comes to a video game. I enjoy platforming and I enjoy collectathons, and the fact that this is an easy playable collectathon with the occasional boss fight, the occasional enemy to fight, but just a relaxing playthrough is what made it high on my list. There's plenty of games out there that are hard, that are difficult, that make you need to get good. You don't have to be good to play this game. You just have to relax and enjoy the beautiful scenery and enjoy the cool levels and enjoy the fun gameplay without having to worry about dying or without a frustrating experience. If you enjoy collectathons and you don't necessarily enjoy the difficult collectathons, this is on my list because it's perfect at being a relaxing, fun playthrough. My only complaint is that it was a little bit too short, or else it might be higher on the list. Next up at number 8 is Mortal Kombat 11, and I have to start this off by saying that I hated the microtransactions push that was in this game. They definitely started selling you stuff as soon as you'd put this game in or finish downloading it. However, I'm not going to let that keep me from enjoying the fantastic gameplay here. This is one of my favorite fighting game series, and this is one of my favorite additions in that series so far. The combat was just very fluid and very fun. The fatalities, all of the different movesets, and all of the different characters were fantastic. And the good news is, if you want to play this game and you don't ever want to spend any money other than your purchase price, you're absolutely capable of doing so. Don't worry about the crypt. Don't worry about the costumes that you can unlock through crystals and other means. Just do the challenge towers, do the story mode, and play the PvP or play tournament mode or couch co-op, and there's still a ton of gameplay here. You don't have to spend a single dime to experience this game almost to its fullest, and that's why it's still on the list. Were it not for those microtransactions, it might have been way closer to number 1, but it's definitely a black mark on its record. At number 7, I've listed SteamWorld Quest, and the reason this game is here is because I love card games, I love RPGs, so when you give me a quest-based RPG game that uses cards as its way of doing combat and deck building, I'm going to love it. I love deck building games in general. I know a lot of you guys are not going to enjoy it, but this game is very short, relatively simplistic. There was not enough deck building or deck building options for me to really want to play through it a second or third time, but if you played the old Chandelier Microprose games, you might actually really enjoy this as well, because you work your way through the world, you purchase cards, you use those cards to build those decks, and there's not a tremendous amount of variety like there was in the Chandelier game, but there's just enough to have kept me interested to playing to the end of the game. At number 6, I have listed Luigis Mansion 3. And when it comes to these types of, puzzle games, these search around, try to find stuff games, I'm really not that much into them, but something about the Mario universe kind of brought me into this game. The idea of exploring this hotel, finding all of the buttons for the elevators, was enough to keep me interested pretty much right up to the end of the game, and the mini boss fights and the boss fights are actually really well done. And where I would get frustrated every once in a while trying to solve a problem or solve a puzzle and eventually look up the answer to that puzzle because I just wasn't clicking in my brain, for the most part, this game is actually really excellent. The actual ghost hunting is cool. The actual levels are just really well designed and fun to explore, even though I got stuck every once in a while and got a little bit frustrated and used a guide to get me past that point. I still think I can easily recommend this game as one of the best games of the year. At number 5 is Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I think a lot of people are going to expect this to be on a lot of people's most disappointing games list, but I have to say the reason they find this disappointing is probably the reason I find it so comforting. I have not been playing Pokemon for that long. I guess my first entry was probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. So this formula is not that burnt out for me, and when you added in the wild area and allowed me to go and catch a ton of Pokemon in this area, do online modes, raid with my friends, I actually found that very appealing. So this game is pretty much frozen in time. It's just another Pokemon game without the innovation, without the cool stuff that I was hoping they would add, but the additions that are there are fun. If you're not bored of the old formula, if you're not bored of doing the exact same thing that you've done in all of the other games, you'll probably still find this one interesting, and I certainly did. Plus, I love those starters. Grookey Gang for life. And number 4 is Jedi Fallen Order, and I wish I could have listed this game higher. I feel like a lot of people will, but going into this game, I was expecting to just not like it. And in the first few hours, I found the combat to be a little stiff, a little clunky, the platforming to be very clunky, and I found the game to be buggy. But once I powered through that, got used to the combat system, got used to the platforming, and got used to the rest of the game, I played it all the way to its surprise ending. And I have to say, story-wise, this was a fantastic game. And I also want to put it on the list because it is being published by EA, and EA has had a very bad tendency of getting Star Wars games completely wrong. They got a lot right in this one, specifically when it came to the monetization and the microtransactions, because there is none. You buy the game, you own the game, you get to play the game in its entirety, and I feel like that's worth celebrating. Even in the footage you're looking at right now, you're probably going to see some pop-in and some bugs and some other issues. That's definitely there in the game, and that's why it's not my number 1. But when it comes to storyline and when it comes to everything else, I feel like it did the Star Wars universe quite a bit of justice, and I think it's worth putting on the list just for that. And number 3 is Slay the Spire. And look, I'm expecting, full on expecting, most people out here to not even know what this game or even care. But you remember earlier I talked about SteamWorld Quest? Well, Slay the Spire is another deck building game where you draft cards as you spin up the spire trying to defeat bosses and smaller monsters and shopping at stores and eventually trying to get to the top of the spire to try to effectively slay the spire. And there's 3 different classes with tons of different cards and tons of different stuff to get and tons of different artifacts that affect the way you play. It's basically a card-based Binding of Isaac, and there's so much interaction with the cards and interaction with the different items that you can pick up that there's almost limitless gameplay here. And then once you delve into the customization settings with those 3 classes, there's an infinite number of ways to play this game. It's one of my most played games on PC when it came out, I guess on PC the previous year. It came out on the Switch this year, and that's why I'm putting it on this year's list, because you absolutely should get the finished release version of this game if you like deck building games, if you like card games, or if you're looking for an introduction to card games that are not going to cost you an arm and a leg to play, but to give you an idea of what all the hype's about. At number 2 is Mario Maker 2, and this was really close to being number 1 on the list because I put well over 100 hours into this. This took the Mario Maker formula and just really added a ton more to it. Lots of single-player content this time through to get you used to the types of stuff that you'll see in the multiplayer, and then a ton of tools that allow people to build just an infinite number of Mario levels. And I never really got into the autoplay levels, and I never really got into the really hard levels, but what I do enjoy in this game is playing the easy and the medium levels that allow me to just explore or solve puzzles and just enjoy the game itself, and there is so much of that. Most of what the single-player content is exactly that. But there's another reason this game is on the list. Not only do you pay just $60 for an infinite amount of Mario, they are continuing to update this game, adding new options and new tools and new stuff, even allowing you to create more courses than you could when the game was released. So everybody can have, I think, 64 or even more courses now uploaded. so there's literally an infinite amount of Mario Maker levels to play. If you like side-scrolling Mario, this is the quintessential side-scrolling Mario experience, because no matter what difficulty level you want, it's there. If you prefer puzzle solving, if you prefer autoplay, that's there too. And the single-player tools and adventure is actually pretty good, is surprisingly good for what could have easily just been a tacked-on experience to get you to the multiplayer. And then finally, at number 1, is the game I spent the most time with this year, and that's Borderlands 3. And I'm going to go ahead and point out right now, because I think it's very important that I do, that there's a slight conflict of interest here, because the folks over at 2K knew what a Borderlands fan I was, so they flew me out to get an opportunity to play this game early on. Regardless of that, I loved this game. Getting now 3 different characters to max level, working on my 4th character to max level, playing most of those characters through the game several times, and farming in-game bosses and in-game stuff for legendary loot, and I'm super excited for the DLC that's coming out. I literally spent 200 hours playing this game with my friends, my roommate, who the last game I really played with him was Borderlands 2, and during that 3 weeks I took off right around the times Borderlands 3 came out, when I wasn't doing something I had to do, I was playing Borderlands 3 up to 8, 9, or 10 hours a day. And look, I've got plenty to say bad about Borderlands 3. I didn't really enjoy the storyline, and the more I play through that game, the more I start despising some of the characters like Ava or some of the story beats, because you can't skip a lot of the storyline stuff. But when it comes to the gameplay loop, I find it immensely satisfying. I loved Borderlands 1, I loved Borderlands 2 even more. I hated the pre-sequel, but Borderlands 3 brought the series back on track and gave me the gameplay loop that I always wanted, with a bunch of different ways to play it, especially at the high end, and that's why this game was easily my game of the year. Say what you want, and you may not agree, but this is the perfect, satisfying game for me. So there you have it. That's my top 10 games of the year. All games I played, most of them I played right up to completion. Some of them I played so much that my hands are actually sore. And some of these games I'm still playing even to this day. When I was trying to play through some of the other games on this list, like Jedi Fallen Order, when I was done playing that game for the day, I went and played some Slay the Spire, some Mario Maker, even some Mortal Kombat 11. I was really surprised at how addictive some of these games are. And now that I look at the games that are on this list, it's no wonder. As much as I love story-based single-player games, a lot of this repetitious gameplay does appeal to me when it comes to Mortal Kombat, Slay the Spire, Super Mario Maker, something that you just pick up, play a lot of, and set back down. It's no real surprise that's on my game of the list now, our game of the year list. Now, that said, one man could be wrong, and I know if I am, you're going to let me know in the comments section below. What is your personal game of the year? And while you're down there, I want to let you know I've got a lot of other lists coming. I want to look at the most disappointing games of the year, the worst selling games of the year, the highest scored games of the year according to Metacritic and user scores, and of course, then as we move into the end of 2020, I want to make best games and worst games of the decade. I hope you guys will enjoy those types of videos. So if you do, hit subscribe while you're down there. Now, guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon. Now, go play some video games.